Hi everyone! So some of you may remember a 5-foot underwater drawing that I started a few years ago, and you might be wondering what happened to that. Well, in this video, I'm going to share my frustrations with why I kept getting stuck with it and how I'm going to move forward with it to hopefully complete it. So I started working on this drawing back in 2019, and it was because I wanted to challenge myself. And throughout that year, I kept drawing bigger pieces with more detail, and I did my woodland youth piece that was a really big drawing with a lot of animals within it. And then after that, I started working on my collector drawing, which had over 200 hands and arms. And I wanted to take it to the next level. I don't know why 2019 was that year for me, but I really wanted to push it again. And this time I was thinking size. So with this new drawing, I was like, I'm gonna work on a 5-foot canvas. So I bought the stretch rollout paper, I taped it off, and I started working on it. Now, immediately I ran into a few difficulties just because it was so big, but also I kept moving around the drawing because I didn't really know where to start. And it wasn't until later that I realized I needed to work left to right. Otherwise my hand was gonna smear the graphite and it was kind of a big problem. So I did really seek out to challenge myself, and I didn't realize how big of a challenge this was going to be, because I knew in the back of my head that this might take a year or two, but the way that I've been working on it, it almost felt like it would be endless, like I would never be able to finish this piece. And initially, I did have pretty good motivation. I felt pretty engaged with it. I felt pretty inspired working on it, but then after a couple months, I could feel myself not really desiring to work on the piece. It was like I wanted to work on other projects. At that time, I knew I needed to start doing my next art book collection, and that always takes a bit of time away. And I couldn't quite fit it in my schedule because I wasn't really wanting to work on it. So I would work on the piece on and off for a few years. And there were times that, yes, I would have some temporary motivation, like May would come around and I'd be like, okay, for maybe the month of May, I'll put in a few hours every week and we'll see what happens at the end of the month. But once that month was over, I wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted to just put it in the background so I can focus on my other projects. So where I'm at in my life right now, I have way too many larger projects on my plate. And if I'm honest with you, I can't handle all of them right now at the same time. And it's been kind of a struggle with me trying to figure out how to manage working on all of these without dropping any of them. And I have gone through the process of thinking maybe I could cut one, like maybe one isn't fulfilling enough, but I do feel that each of these I connect with in a way that I don't want to just let it go. So currently I have my tarot deck, and to illustrate this whole thing, there's 78 cards and I do roughly one a month. So I knew that this would be a larger project, but apparently I have a bad habit of signing up for bigger projects and then getting frustrated when they don't get complete sooner. The next one is I'm working on my next art book collection, and it's this coffee table book, and it's a 10-year span of all the works that I've done. So it's just a lot of work collecting all of these and then putting it into a book format. The third one is my illustrated novel Swordplay, which unfortunately always gets backburnered like first. And I think it's because I'm a little nervous, probably because I'm not a writer by nature. So it's like I have to learn how to write and draw, and I think that's just been overwhelming at the moment. And then obviously the fourth one would be this Aquatica Nautica. And this one, it comes in waves. Sometimes I'll get really motivated, I'll work on it for a couple weeks, and then I'll just drop it for like a few months. And that's been kind of the process I've been going through with this. So this is on top of what I'm already trying to do on a monthly basis. So every month, I'm usually going to 1 or 2 conventions. I am making a YouTube video like what I'm doing right now. I try to update my Patreon backers with a few posts, and I'm trying to stay active on the Discord. And then obviously the new social media game where you're jumping through the hoops of being a video editor, making reels. It's just been a lot right now to be a modern artist. Now, I'm not one to complain, and I'm definitely one of those people who believe being a good artist is being a good problem solver. So I'm trying to look at these problems and trying to figure out what is the solution to all of this. So lately I've been narrowing down my focus on each of these problems and trying to navigate, okay, Tim, how are you going to figure out how to move forward with this and not have it be a headache and not have it be a problem that just weighs on your shoulders? So let's talk about the solutions that I've been coming up with, and I'm going to put them into action, and hopefully by the next time I make a video about this Aquatica Nautica piece, there will definitely be more progress. So for the past few years, I've been working on a more hourly agenda basis. So essentially, I'll set a timer for an hour and I'll try to work within that hour specifically on one task. And honestly, this does seem to work for a lot of my other projects, but for some reason it wasn't fitting the Aquatica Nautica piece. And it was really frustrating because it was like, how can I muster up the motivation to do an hour on my art book or a YouTube video or my tarot deck, but for some reason I can't have that same energy applied to this piece. And this year has been a lot of experimentation for me. I've been learning a lot because I've been reading a lot of books, which is rare for me. I read a lot as a child, and then for some reason from like mid-teens till I was like 33, I didn't read almost any books. And now I've been reading about 2 a month roughly, and it's been pretty great. And one of those books called Atomic Habits, it really talks about focusing on the process more so than the goals. And I realized I was very goal heavy. I wasn't really focused on enjoying the process as much. And then my good friend Aria Fawn, whose socials I'll put somewhere on the screen here alongside their artwork, sent me a video on dopamine. And this was so helpful because I realized the way that dopamine works and the way that I was trying to make this piece work were not working together. So essentially the idea is when you get an idea to do something, your dopamine in your brain spikes. Like without even having to do anything, the desire for it alone will like raise your dopamine level. But then as you start working towards it, it starts to go down. And the longer that you go down, the greater the reward in your mind. Now, usually there's a curve. So eventually, as you work towards it, you start finishing it up, and then you get the reward. And that could be different for every person. Usually it's like posting on social media and getting a good response. I would feel like that's a typical reward nowadays. But I'm realizing with these bigger projects, you have to go deeper and deeper. And the way our brain works is it wants the reward to get higher and higher, because the more you work and the deeper you get, you expect like equivalent return on that. But the problem is with these bigger projects, you dig so deep that your brain at some point is like, you know what? I know the reward isn't going to be worth the amount of effort that I'm putting into this, so I don't want to do this at all anymore. And that's what happens. And that's definitely what's been happening to me the past couple years with this project specifically. And it's making me rethink how to do bigger projects moving forward. So I had this idea. I'm going to treat this like a scientific experiment, and I'm going to be moving forward with this idea. So hopefully by the next video, it will have worked. So the idea is just this. Instead of focusing on finishing this piece, instead I'm going to focus on creating a single subject matter in that piece every single day. Now, the way why I think this will work is because rather than spending an hour on the piece, which can be kind of a daunting task depending on the day, especially if I have so many other things that I need to be doing, what if on that day I only had to draw a fish? A single fish in this piece, because it's so small, might take me like 2-3 minutes. But maybe some days I'm feeling weirdly motivated and I want to do like a little temple or maybe a couple mermen or mermaids. And that will obviously take longer, but I'm no longer constrained by a time restriction. So that's the idea with this, and I think it will be a better motivator for me because I'm no longer looking at the reward being finishing the entire piece, but the reward is finishing those little subject matters, whether it's a fish, whether it's a mermaid. And hopefully that little dopamine curve will just be that day, and that will be the reward I get. And you know, some days maybe I could create a reel out of it, I can make extra footage, who knows, but that's kind of the goal moving forward here. So I think when it comes to these bigger projects, I'm going to try to treat them more on a daily motivation basis. And that means I'm going to try to figure out ways where I can get inspired and find creativity in adding to the project without it feeling overwhelming. So hopefully I'll be recording another video like this in a few months where I can talk about the success of this and hopefully not the failure. I'm hoping that I don't hit another roadblock where it's like, why can't I figure out how to work on this? But I really have a good feeling about it this time. As always, thank you guys for watching. And if you want to watch more videos of mine, you can do so right now.